So I'm fighting for a better life. I'm fighting so I don't have to worry about where I'm gonna lay my head the next day. I'm
Yeah.
fighting so I don't have to worry about where my next meal is coming from. So the plus side of this is I love programming because even though I can't control the outside world, when I'm on my computer, for as long as I can control that code. I can make that code look beautiful. You know what I mean?
Well, thanks, Dante, for joining me. Do you want to tell a little bit about yourself and who you are, where you're living? Because I think it's interesting in what you're doing right now.
All right. Well, I am Dante Galindo Cruz. Right now, I currently live in Juarez, Nuevo León, Mexico. I've been here for the last 8 months. Enjoying delicious tacos and hanging out with awesome people.
And then where did you move from?
So I am originally from Chattanooga, Tennessee. So I'm a young Southern belle from the South. And so that's my stumping ground. So yeah, it's kind of like a big leap. Tennessee, Mexico, like who would have thought?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
Sweet. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're fine. So, as like someone new to like React and the whole React Redux system, what's some really good advice that you can give to us? Because when we step into the React world, it's just like, oh, you can do this. And I'm just like, wow, like it's just like putting a kid in a candy store and saying, well, you can have whatever you want in here, but it's just like, what do I need to focus first? You know what I mean? Because like when you talk about Redux, you start thinking, oh, I need to use Redux in every part of my application. But I heard that wasn't the case. And then when you're passing props, when you're passing, like, for instance, a class prop, a class component, sorry, and you're a parent component, and you're passing state. Do you want to pass state in individual props, or do you want to pass it as a whole? And then also too, like, it's just like so many questions that really
Yeah.
go through your head, and it just feels so overwhelming because you want to be great, but I'm the type of person, I don't want to just know React. I want to be great at implementing best practices as well, because anybody can jump on, like, get some code and throw it together and say, oh, I built something. But I want to have a great type of architecture. I want any developer who comes behind me to be able to look at my code and say, okay, I understand what's going on here,
Yeah, I think that's an awesome goal to have. I think there's a lot of room for that we could do better with that in the industry as a whole. So to kind of break down your questions one at a time, the first question is, like, there's so much to learn. What are some of the important parts, and what can you do now as a new React developer to get really good at React and be that kind of developer that you want to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's really awesome about React is React is really unopinionated on how you build a React application, how you use components. I mean, there's a few rules and a few times where they say don't do this, but usually it's up to the developer, it's up to you. And because of that, because of the lightweight system that React is, it relies a lot on just vanilla JavaScript. So you'll notice as you're building React applications, you're doing a lot of just plain JavaScript that doesn't even have anything to do with React. It's just a JavaScript function, mapping, running reduce, filter. So one of the pieces of advice I give to all of my new students is to work on JavaScript katas every day. It's Katas, kata. Do you know what a kata is?
No.
So it's a martial arts term. And when you're learning any kind of martial arts, there are forms and movements that you do every single day over and over and over again, so that your body learns that movement. And then when you're fighting, you don't have to think about, okay, I'm going to do this move and I'm going to do this move. It just comes naturally.
Secondary.
Yeah,
Yes.
it comes from your subconscious at that point. It's muscle memory. And so they go, so in martial arts, you do katas every day, which are these movements. And so JavaScript katas are JavaScript exercises you can do every single day to build your JavaScript skills. So when you are building a React application and you're faced with this situation, like you have to build a certain feature that's going to require some JavaScript, it's almost second nature at that point. Oh yeah, I have this data. I need it to look like this. This is a function I can write that will format my data this way. And so that's one of the first things I always tell new React developers is work on find some kind of kata system to do every day. Code Wars is probably one of the most popular ones, codewars.com. And just really get good at your JavaScript. And then also, I've noticed that a lot of students who are first learning React tend to struggle with props and state and data flow. It sounds like you're doing okay with that. With the example you showed me, you were handling everything well. But that is go ahead.
Oh no. I was gonna say now that's one thing that I did pick up when I was reading through like the docs is that and also too in the course that I'm looking at it's unidirectional, so it's gonna flow from the parent downward. So the parent, like say for instance, like a child cannot update the state of its parent. You know what I mean? The parent has to pass away the props to the child in order for it to be able to do that, you know, because every state, like it's like every class has its own state. It's like its own island, you know what I mean? So it's like each class has its own individual state that's unique to only that class component, which is something that I made sure I emphasized and underlined and highlighted in my notebook so that I would not get confused.
Yeah, that's awesome, because that is a big point of confusion. So the next thing I tell students is find some way to learn how props works and how data flow works in React. And part of that is learning how to update data and with set state, and learn how that works, and how that when your state updates and changes, how your component tree reacts to that change. And that's what's amazing about React, and that's where the name React comes from, right? You've got some data in this component that is sharing that data down to children components. When that data changes, how do those children components react and update the view, update the DOM? So, but it sounds like you're pretty solid there, which is awesome.
Yeah. Yes. I actually got some clarity during my studies this week, because at first I was hearing about state, and I was also hearing about a component lifecycle, and then just all these different concepts sounded so confusing at first. But then knowing that component will mount, component did update, component will unmount. Though the render is part of the lifecycle, and then it's just it's been really interesting and really cool. And then I was starting to learn when you do component did mount, that's just that's going to happen once, and then that's where you want to if you're doing any APIs or things like that, that's kind of your setup, you know what I mean, within that one. So trust me, I made my biggest goal was to take the thing that confused the hell out of me and make it something that was second nature to me, because when I stepped into the React world, state, props, and in the component lifecycle was something that made me scratch my head and want to pull out my hair. So I made sure to focus on my weakness first,
Yeah.
Even though most people say focus on your strengths, I had to focus on the weakness because I was tired of being afraid of those topics.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And you know, it will, that attitude will make you a better programmer faster. I kind of struggle with that. There's a lot of topics that, you know, I you hear about all the time. You're like, that sounds really cool, and a lot of smart people are into that thing, and I see it on Twitter, and I don't understand a single thing they're saying. So I'm just going to keep that over in the scary ether over here, things that scare me,
Mhm.
and a lot of people don't get into that. So yeah, I think that's a really good point to attack where you feel like you're the weakest. I love that.
Yeah, yeah. I think that what gave me that inspiration was I actually was when I was afraid of front end altogether, and because I was just like I don't have an eye for it, I don't know how to lay out a page. I was so afraid of it, and then I started reading through Michael Hartle's and Nick's Learning Up series, and they had a really interesting series on CSS and layout. CSS and layout, those are my greatest weaknesses. So I remember it's a quick read, to be honest, but it took me a month to get through it because I have like I have a this is my dedicated notebook to that. Like I have notebooks, I know what everything is. So like I filled up this whole notebook with just like design, like principles like of design and like I focused on that. And then when moving into React, I was afraid. And then I was just like, okay, what do I do when I'm afraid? I tackle what I'm afraid of. So I think that really helps, you know. But new developers, I always hear people say, don't focus on your weaknesses, focus on your strengths. But in the world of development, you should actually tackle your weaknesses first and then polish your strengths later. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, that's awesome. Um, how do you find that? I mean, obviously, you have got tons of notebooks and tons of notes. How do you find that helps you? Does it help you recall things? Do you go back through your notes a lot, or?
Yes. Oh, I actually made a tweet about that today, actually. So the way my notebooks work is like, for instance, this one where I'm doing my React notes. Sometimes when I'm doing my notes, I like to be very, very descriptive because I feel like the kinesthetics of writing really helps with the mental aspect as well because I'm physically engaged in it. You know, I can easily type. Typing is, you know, it's like muscle memory. It's second nature to me. I can do, but at the same time too, I can zone out as well. I even do that when programming. Sometimes I just zone out because it's just like, oh, I can do this. I don't really have to think about it. So the like that energy that I put into taking notes really helps me because eventually the wrist starts hurting. I'm like, oh, it's tired. Let me stretch it out a little bit. But also too, when I take notes on the computer, I just put it in a folder somewhere. I forget about it. When I have my notebook, I slowly go through it. I see where I made grammatical errors, or I've seen where the statement that I wrote in there didn't really make sense. So I go back to the resource in which I learned from, and then I reread it, and then I find out, oh, I didn't really understand this the first time around. I just wrote it. So let me rephrase this and write it in a way that makes sense. And then so every time before I continue on another lesson, I check for understanding. So my notebooks are a way for me to first be accountable and then secondly to check for understanding. Because if I can get through this notebook and not have to pause and say, oh, what was that? Then I know I understand. But if I have to go back and I'm pausing, then that means nope, you need to go reread this lesson or you need to rewatch this video because you don't understand. And I think that's the majority of us as new developers, we want to be developers so bad, like right now, instantly.
Yeah.
We want it to be like instant microwave oatmeal. But the thing about it is the reward isn't finishing. The reward is in the journey. It's in the process of understanding. And you can finish 1,000 books and 1,000 courses, but if you gain nothing from it, then it was a waste of your time. So my notebooks are my journey. You know what I mean? Because it's always keeping me accountable. It's always making sure that I'm double checking what I'm doing versus taking notes on a computer. I just put it in the folder and forget about it,
Yeah.
and it go into the black hole of my computer.
Oh, that is so true, man. I need
Yeah.
to buy a notebook. I've got this.
Oh, oh, that's nice. I kept trying to find like a nice hardback notebook, but here there like I couldn't find any, so that's why I went for like little notebooks like these. They're only 100 pages, but I try to make sure I'm not being long with it in my notes, because sometimes when I used to copy like the whole book, and I'm just like, okay, Dante, that really doesn't help if you're copying the whole book. You need to take little chunks and reword it in a way that makes sense to you, so you're not having to write verbatim, word for word, everything this book is saying. So that's another thing too. It's helping me not be so long-winded. So when I have to explain to the next person, I have my simplified version of it, because so many people, they're too damn technical for me. I'm like, speak English, like make me understand what you're saying. Like, don't use what I've read in the documentation. Like, break it down. Like, I even said a joke today. I even did a tweet today too, where like I was mentoring last year, and somebody was just like they were like, "What's a repo?" I was just like, it's a fancy ass way of saying a folder where you keep your project in and GitHub. And I said, it's a way. I said you can think of it like your parents' home, but for your code, where you can leave all the stuff that you made and you don't have to pay rent. Like that's so, just simple ways to make people. Thank you. It's just, I feel like if we can step back, like it's good to know the technical vocabulary, but if you can take that technical word and give it a simplified definition, you will have so many people not afraid of development anymore. Because I was listening to all these complex words, but then like deconstruction, interpolation. I was like, what is this? It sounds so scary. And then when I learned that what it is, I was like, oh, just like one time this designer would tell me, oh, do you have a hero on your page? I was like, what's a hero? I was like, that thing, a big ass picture? I was like, why didn't you just say that? Why do we gotta complicate things? Like, make it simple. Like,
Oh, that's true. We do that a lot, and it adds to the fear of diving deep into a subject. Like, if we could just simplify our jargon a little bit, then the new developers wouldn't be afraid to look at something new.
exactly. Like when I was hearing like with Ruby and Python, like it was like hash tables, dictionaries. I'm like, oh my god, what is this? What is this? I'm scared right now. And then when someone told me what it was, like simplified, I was like, oh, that makes sense.
I can work with. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Then it's just like, oh, well, what other technical terms sound really complex but aren't? Like objects, where it sounded so complex to me, but then when I started working with them in React, I'm like, you're really useful. Like now, like it was so funny. I was talking to another guy that's here in Mexico, but he's in like the south of Mexico. We were talking, and I was just like, bro, I know the difference between when I would want to use an object and when I would want to use an array, because React is teaching me those things. Because, like I said before, so many resources out here are so technical, and they don't give you real life examples of when you would want to use them. They're like, yeah, look at this strange example that you would never probably use in your actual life of development, which is, and versus giving me something like, give me the goods, you know what I mean? Like, make it to where I can apply this example to other projects in the near future. Like when Stefan, like in his React course, he says, oh, well, when you use objects, you can use this as a way of doing configuration so that you won't have to repeat yourself. I'm like, well, I can do that with objects? I can check for logic too using objects? I'm like, well, this just saved me like tons of lines of code, because I would have been like, let me put an itinerary operator here, there. Maybe, it look good there too, Yeah, so like simplify the jargon and like give real world examples so that we're not left scratching our head like, when would I use this? Because you can ask any developer. Like if they're like, a lot of us are afraid of saying like what we don't know, because we're afraid that somebody's going to judge us for not knowing what's supposed to be simple. And like, I'm the type of person, I tell anybody, when I walk into a room, I walk into a dumbass. I don't care. I'm not the smartest person in the room. I'm going to be a dumbass when I get there, and I'm going to be not so much of a dumbass when I leave. I'm going to be like a sponge absorbing everything. So I would ask I feel like there's such things as dumb questions, because people have asked me dumb questions, but I would ask what can people say that are like the dumbest questions, but they really helped me a lot because I like, even though they might judge me when they're giving me the answer, I'm like, bro, you're giving me the good, so I don't care about your judgment, you know?
I'm learning. I'm gaining here.
Exactly. I'm
Well, and you
winning.
know
Like
that
you
there's
might.
other, and you know that there's other people in that room that are wanting to ask the same question but don't. And so there's a
Yes.
lot of people that are around you that are like, thank you for asking that question that I didn't want to ask.
Oh, I can give you a prime example of that. So yesterday, my boss decided he wanted to try to get in on me, because he asked me, like, he wasn't really specific about this whole get situation. He didn't even let me know if it was local, if it was remote. He just said, and then his first language isn't English, so he was trying to tell me in English instead of Spanish, and then I got lost somewhere in the translation, and so I told him, oh well, I answered the question in a I answered it in a question type of way. Oh, and he lost it. He's like, I don't understand. How you can't do this? There's the door. I don't even know why I hired you. He's like, did you lie to me when you started here? I'm just like, man. I was like, you calm down, because I'm not the one. Don't you be raising your voice at me. Don't you be showing me the door, because I would gladly walk out of it and never come back. Like, don't test me. You know, got on my nerves too much to not let me, like, I would dance out the door like, ah! Like, let me run out of here. And then when it was all said and done, after he done cursed me out and just went off on me, the other guy was just like, as we were leaving the building, like, hey, I'm not gonna lie, I was really confused. I'm glad you asked that question. I was just like, you gonna let me take all this and you just nodding your head like you understood like the whole time? Why are you just going off on me and just calling me all kind of dumbasses? And you just right there, mm-hmm, I get you. I'm like, you're so full of you know what. I was side eyeing him after that. I'm just like, so you mean to tell me you let me take on all that getting cursed out and getting yelled at, and you didn't even understand yourself? And he was saying it in Spanish after that, and your first language is Spanish. So I was just like, so that's why I'm not afraid to look dumb. Like, I don't care what anyone says, because at the end of the day, you might judge me and you might think, oh, this guy's not a developer. But when I leave, I'm going to take whatever knowledge I gain and apply it to my studies. And I'm going to be better. So the next time I can add value to that conversation and give you my perspective on it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Where do you think you there's not a lot of people that are like that. I mean, you're self-learning, you're working 15 hours a day. Where do you think you got that drive, to where do you think that attitude comes from?
Well, it's gonna get a little personal. I hope you don't mind. I hope you're not like don't be emotional, Dante. I don't have time for this.
No,
Like,
no, go
toughen
for
up.
it. Go for it.
No. So all of my my prior to the developer, and this will make you understand why development is so important to me and why it has a place in my heart. When I was younger, I came from nothing. I didn't know my mother. She was a drug addict. I was in a foster homes. I was beaten a lot. I had people calling me dumb my whole life. That's why when I say dumb, it's like it's second nature to me, because that's what I was called all my life. And and like people always made me feel like I wasn't good enough. You know what I mean? And then when I was 17, I became homeless, and I stayed that way for 8 years. And
Wow.
I remember, like, my only thing was thinking to myself, like, I want something more out of my life. Like, I want I want to have some kind of control over my life, to where I just don't feel like my life is happening to me. Like, I'm just existing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like I was just existing. I had no control over my life. But there was
Yeah.
something in the back of my mind that I remember when I was a kid. Computers used to interest me so much. But when you grow up poor, homeless, with nowhere to stay, no food to eat, no family, you really can't really invest in those like passions that you have. Because I was always technology and music. Those were my two loves. And so I remember when I finally had a chance, I think I was 19, and this is when I got into college. I was remember just being there before this college started, and I was like, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm going from homeless to being able to go to college. Like, this is amazing. But the high school I came from, I was always self-taught, because the teacher was just like, the school I went to was in a really bad neighborhood, and it was really
Mhm.
bad, and it's kind of It's like, just like their advice was just don't die before graduation, like, and don't go to jail because I might see some of you there. Like, that's like, yay!
Wow.
Like, so now I have anxiety about death. Thank you. And so I remember, like, the summer before, I just sat there. My first language was Java. No, yeah, Java. And I was just sitting there, just like reading through this book, and I was just like saying, like, you can do this, Dante. If you can just become a developer, you can do what you love doing, and you can change your whole life. You don't have to keep being homeless. You don't have to keep struggling. But then what happened was, I end up during school, I ended up becoming like, I was already homeless, but then it hit me even harder financially, and so I had to work more than I had to be in school, and like I was like just moving from place to place to place. And so last year, someone was really kind enough to say, "Hey, I know you don't have anywhere to go. I know you don't have any money. I know you don't have family. Let me extend your olive branch. Like, I have a shed in the backyard. You come here, you stay, you get on your feet, and then you move forward." So I was just like, okay. I was just like, I have a year. I have a year to study my ass off. I have a year to give this everything that I got. I wanted this 10 years ago. I'm going to do it now. And I was like, in a year's time, I will be a developer. So I remember, like, I had no money, no food. I remember end up in the hospital because I wasn't really eating that well, and I got really sick because of it last year. Then I almost had a heart attack. I almost died like twice last year. I almost died this year too. But that's another story from like rare syndrome. But I was just studying every day, 7 in the morning to 3, 4 the next morning, sleep for about 3, 4 hours, wake up, study, study, study. And then I remember tweeting, and I was like, hey, is there any opportunities for like an internship for a college dropout with no program experience? And someone was like, apply for this. So I applied for it. And then a couple of months later, it's like, congratulations, we would like to send you the internship. I'm like, you lying. I was like, stop playing with my emotions. You playing. I was like, I'm not a college student. I don't have anything to offer you. I don't even have nice clothes. And he's just like, it don't matter. Just show up. And so I ended up first in a treasury office in the city because I'm bilingual. Not that bilingual, but everybody just thinks, if you say, oh, like, oh my God, he speaks Spanish, you guys. He's our interpreter, our translator, whatever we need him to be, that's your guy. And I was like, hola, ¿cómo estás? Agua? El baño? and so I remember being in there, just taking calls, doing this translation. Doing like, and I was just like, hold up. Y'all told me I was supposed to be doing tech. I want to leave from this. I want to do some tech. And so they're just like, okay, we're going to set you up with an interview. And it was just like a 6-week internship when I did switch over, working in the application division of the city of Chattanooga. And so I remember being there, and like, I was a developer, dude. I was only getting paid to be there for like 3 days, but I was showing up 5 days a week and working on weekends. Like, because I was just so excited. I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Like 3 months later of studying, like, and I'm actually like doing this. They're just like, oh, Dante, your JavaScript skills are really good. Oh, Dante, you're really good with the CSS. I'm like, well, I know. I studied a lot.
I've got the notebooks to prove it.
Exactly. Look, wave my little notebook around like, yes, everyone, get your notebook. Take notes. And so I remember being there, and then I remember the guy was telling me, he was just like, the director was saying, like, if you do a really good job here, we wanted to hire you on after the internship. We'll see about hiring you on when the internship is over with. So I busted my ass. I didn't even know about WordPress. I started learning. I didn't know about plugins. I started learning how to build one. I was just like so dedicated. I'm still not like the bee's knees. Like, I'm still working on that. But that little speck of hope that he gave me for somebody who came from a background where they had nothing to being this close to a dream, it was amazing to me. But unfortunately, the internship was over, and he was like, oh yeah, we don't have money in the budget to hire you. Sorry. And then so after that, moving forward, I tried to apply for jobs there, but if you saw me at the time, I had dreads, and if you hear the way I speak, I'm not. Oh, hello, my name is Dante Galindo Cruz. I'm a very professional guy. I'm just like, what you want? I'm tired. I'm hungry. What? Like, because my thing is, like, I don't feel like you have to put on a mask to pretend to be professional. Like, why can't I have my sass? Why can't I walk my walk and talk my talk without having to conform to the norm of what being a professional is? Because I feel like what I want to give people is honesty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I feel like so many of us are ashamed to be who we are. I know I came from nothing. I know I'm not the smartest person in the room, but what I can offer you is 100% who the person I am, and I can offer you 100% of my dedication to trying to be better. You know what I mean? Not better than anyone else in this room, but been better than who I was previously. You know what I mean? And so that's why I'm driven, because I came from nothing. And for so long, I felt invisible and I didn't feel like anybody, you know. And so now I'm working on being the person that I've always wanted to be for myself, being that adult who could have protected me when I was a child, yeah, and not had all that bad stuff happen to me like it did. So I'm fighting for a better life. I'm fighting so I don't have to worry about where I'm going to lay my head the next day. I'm fighting so I don't have to worry about where my next meal is coming from. So the plus side of this is I love programming, because even though I can't control the outside world, when I'm on my computer, for as long as I am, I can control that code. I can make that code look beautiful. You know what I mean? And so that's why programming is so important to me, because it's like my own little world where it's safe for me to be creative. I'm somebody when I code. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even if I'm not somebody to everybody else, like I'm giving life to something that was just an ideal, like in my head, you know? And so that's why development is so important to me, and I'm so passionate, because I love learning, I love growth, and to be in a field where I can just work on something I love every day. Like, who wouldn't want to do this? Like, it's like
It's amazing.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I think that's why I'm so driven, and I think that's why I like too. I don't want to be in the environment that I'm in now, because it's just like being in such an environment like that kind of kills away at the joy that I have for programming. And I do feel like
Mhm.
there's a team out there for me that shares my enthusiasm, that shares my passion for not only teaching, but learning from each other and growing together. I don't
Yeah.
believe in this me, because like with my friends, they're my family. So if I can teach them something or I can help them grow, like I'm going to be there for them. Like my friend, Cynthia, like she told me, she's like, hey, I've been watching you over this last year, and I've seen how much growth you've had, and you inspire me. And so she's told me to recommend her course, and so now she's taking a Udemy course by this guy called Coach Steele, and she's like taking his little boot camp course, and now she's jumping into development. And I was just like, girl, look at you. Yes, like
Yeah.
welcome to the family. Like you was already family at first, but girl, you're part of the VIP family. So I was like, yes, come on up. Because anytime I see somebody who was passionate, I'm just like, yo, I'm not the smartest person, and I probably will confuse you, but at least allow me to help you if you're serious about it. I have nothing but time in the world. I don't want to charge you anything. I just want to help. And I feel like that's why I was so happy to find people like yourself, and to find people within the Twitter community who like pushes me and motivates me, because last year when I started, I didn't have anybody who really just believed in me like that. I think like two people. But other than that, I didn't really have people pushing me to be great. Or even before I was great, just saying like, I'm proud of you. Like, I'm like, what? Like when I see people now on Twitter, like, I'm proud of you. You're awesome. You're inspiring me. I'm like, first of all, you must be talking about somebody else, because I'm Mr. Dante Elegante. I'm not special. I don't have any magical powers. I think you might be talking about the guy behind me, you know? And so, and so, yeah. So sorry it was a long explanation, but
No,
that's why.
that's an
Go ahead.
awesome story, man. Thanks for sharing that. I've seen over and over again that the students that come through Lambda School that are the most successful are the ones that have the grit to push through the hard times, because the course is hard. I mean, you're seeing, just learning on your own, the different struggles, and imagine doing that like every single day, 8 hours a day. Like it wears on you. But those who have the grit and push through those hard times are the ones that are successful.
That sounds like a dream come true, though. Like that's what I'm telling you, Dustin. Like, if I had the chance to be somewhere where I could just stay somewhere for like 9 months. Like working 8 hours a day on coding is like with a great environment and like great people, like just like, well, even though I know it's online, but I'm still saying like you still have like your community. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
oh, I would love that so much because it's just I don't know. It's because it's just like there's a difference. Like working a job that you hate that's not getting you anywhere versus working at something that's going to get you somewhere that you love doing and you love growing. Like I would choose that any day of the week over being somewhere where I feel like growth is not possible. You know, with you all,
Absolutely.
like growth is possible and you actually care about the student. It's not like any other place where you just care about the money, because if that was the case, you would have made it really rigorous and you were like, yeah, time you make like $1, we want like 90% of that. You know what I mean? It was like, no, like we understand, like you're gonna get your start, it's gonna be slow. Like you do you, and then just don't forget about us. And everybody's like, we got you, you know?
Yeah, and I feel that every day. Like I've never worked at somewhere that I get so excited to come to work because I know that we're really changing people's lives. Dante, we got to figure out how to get you into Lambda, man. I'm going to work
Look,
on that.
oh my goodness. Look now, don't tell me that because I'll be over here like in tears like a little baby because like I don't know, I just want to be the best version of myself as a person and as a developer because there are so many ideas that I have. And like there's so many like for instance, I want to share another reason like why I'm trying to learn this because I ever since I was a kid, I always felt like I was put on this earth to change it and leave it better than how I found it. And I kept telling myself, I don't know how I'm gonna do that. And I was just like, I can do it through music, maybe I can, but I know for sure I can do it through technology. And then like on April the 13th of this year, my friend committed suicide. And the thing what happened was I didn't check his social media because at the time I was in the hospital battling with Guillain-Barré, this rare syndrome that almost killed me, like not like last month. And it's just like, and it started, and I got really, really bad to the point that it almost killed me. And like the doctors, like if you didn't show up, like when you did, you probably wouldn't be here talking to me right now. Because if it would have reached up here to your neck and you weren't around like a breathing machine, you would have died. And I was just like,
Wow.
yeah, I'm just like, this is crazy to me. And so, but my friend, like, after like everything happened and after I was at his funeral, I ended up going back on his Facebook the hours that led up to his suicide, and I started looking at how he wanted someone to talk to and how he didn't have someone to talk to, and like I was just like, what if I could? Because sometimes people don't want to pick up the phone and call somebody, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes they want to do it through like a message or something like that. So I was just thinking to myself, like, what can I build so next time someone really feels like they need to talk to somebody, whether it be a person or whether it be some kind of artificial intelligence, just something, or like just to build something where they can install an application that gets like they get regular notifications every day, like, hey, you do matter. Hey, you're a beautiful person. Hey, you do have something to offer to the world. Just something like where they have a little bit of me. Like it's like, what up? Like, just like to lift him up because like I promised my friend I'll always be there for him when he needed me. And although I was sick, I still feel like I could have been there for him. Like I keep thinking, like, what if I would just send him a message? Because he always looked forward to my messages. And it's just that day I was thinking about him. I just didn't want to disturb him because he has a wife and kid, and I just really didn't want to be in the way because I know he said he had a lot of stuff going on and he was moving. But I
Hmm.
just think like, what if that message would have just came in at the right time? And
Hmm.
then like I want to build something around that to where people have like someone like, and also too, I don't want it to just be like automatically generated. Like I actually
Yeah.
want to be somebody on the other end, like, or you know what, or like it can be like those people who deal with those sort of ideas, like it could be them sending like a message to the app, and then it randomly sends it to somebody else, and then that person receives that, and then they send a message, and then like it's just like the gift that keeps on giving, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Huh. That would be cool. Sorry about your friend.
Yeah, he was 22 years old, and his birthday was this month, and I was on the 9th, and I'm just like, and like, and it's just. I don't know. I feel, yeah, I just really feel like I want to be there for him. So,
Yeah,
and that, like moving forward, like I want to make sure that I'm more aware, you know what I mean? And I want to do everything that I can to help other people so they don't have to deal like that. I don't want to just help the people closest to me. I want to help the world if I can in any way possible. So that's why getting better at technology is really important to me because I feel like when I have the tools under my belt, then there's going to be endless possibilities, you know?
absolutely. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And it's even if you're not building something that's going to completely change the world, I mean, just being in a situation where you are not stressed about money and not worried about food and where you're going to sleep. I mean, just taking those stresses out of your life opens up the freedom to reach out to people and to help people. So even if it's not
Yeah.
on the technology side, the technology, getting that income, doing those projects enables you to change the world through other means as well.
Yeah, it goes back to what I learned in my sophomore year of high school. It's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you don't have the basics taken care of first, there's no way you can climb up that pyramid to get to
Yep.
where you're trying to go. And I think that's just been my biggest thing. Oh man, I'm sweating a lot. Sorry, it's hot here in Mexico, and they don't. It's not insulation, just concrete walls.
Oh
And then
yeah.
like the fan is off, and then there's no breeze coming through the window, so it's just like excuse the sweat.
We can.
But
Sorry, man.
huh? No, it's fine. But that's one thing that I've always aspired to do is like get my basic needs taken care of because I feel that like there's so many things that I wanted to do in my life, but I didn't have those basic needs taken care of, so it really made it impossible for me to do anything else. And that's why I don't want just a job. I want a career that I love doing every day. And like I know when development comes to struggles, especially like when you're coming to say, hey, there's a new technique to learn. Like it's like, oh crap, all over again. Here we go. I'm gonna have the imposter syndrome. I'm gonna go through like a pint of Ben and Jerry's ice cream while watching my saddest Netflix series, you know. But later on, I'm gonna get it, and then I'm still gonna watch my Netflix series and still eat my Ben and Jerry's, but I do it in a happy way.
Oh man. Yeah, it's I went to college and got a degree in photography and worked as a photographer for a while. By the time we had our second son, I was still only making like $32,000 a year and living with my parents. And that's when I went through a boot camp as well. So I've been there. I mean, I was never homeless. My parents, let us live with them, which not everybody has that ability. And, but yeah, I went through that boot camp and programming has completely changed our lives. So yeah, I've been
I'm so
there.
happy.
You'll
I'm so
get there.
happy to hear.
Yeah. Sorry, go
I'm
ahead.
so happy. No. I was just saying. I'm just so happy to hear that. Anytime I see someone who goes through the struggles, because sometimes as new developers too, when we meet the wrong type of developers who like are really arrogant and assholes, we think, oh well, they don't understand our struggle. But to see someone who went through the struggle, who knows how it feels to try to just hustle to make ends meet,
Mhm.
and to be place where you're good. You get to do what you love, and you get to do it for a living. Like I'm so proud of you, and I'm so happy that you were able to go from where the place that you were to being where you are now. And then I love it even more, like that you're giving it forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're teaching because the thing about it is, it's not easy to teach. You know what I mean? And and
Yeah.
also if your heart isn't in it, and also if your heart isn't in it, it makes it even that much tougher to do. But from the looks of it, you are someone who genuinely cares. Like this is not a facade. This is not something you're doing to try to promote Lambda. Because when you talk to me, you didn't even mention anything about Lambda. You know what I mean? Because most people only do things because they have an ulterior motive. But you generally did this from the heart. and for you to be this generous and so kind, and to be an instructor, like your students are in the best hands ever. Because I've met a lot of people who don't care. They could care less about you, what you're doing, what you're aspiring to do. Like, it's just about a dollar. And like, you are genuinely a good person in tech, and we need more people like you. Like, you know what I mean?
Thanks, man.
You're
No, I really
welcome.
appreciate that.
You're welcome.
So, I wanted to. You had a couple other questions right at the beginning. I thank you so much for sharing your story. By the way, I don't want to. I want to keep chatting like this, but I do want to focus on what we scheduled this call for.
Okay. Understandable. Sorry. Okay.
But yeah, thanks again for sharing all that. By the way.
Oh, you're very welcome. It was a long-winded explanation, but I felt comfortable and letting down my guard to share that with you. You give me great vibes, so yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, it means a lot. I mean, I'm motivated now to reach out to more people to help and so yeah, I really appreciate it.
No problem.
Cool. So
the last place we left off to was you were explaining to me. You were saying like the second advice that you would give to your students is how state prop and data flow works.
Yeah. And then you asked the question about props specifically, like do you send props down as like the entire state object down as a prop, or break it up and send down individual pieces? I think I've seen most often in the industry that people don't generally send that down the entire state object. They'll break it up into pieces and send down different properties from the state object. And then of course you've got your functions that you send down, your callback functions that you can call from the children components that you send down as props too. So yeah, I'm trying to think if I've ever seen the state object sent down. Have you heard of the context API?
Yes, the context API is just like it's like they say that it's used for like small applications before you get to Redux, because at first everyone was just going Redux, but then it was just like, well, sometimes you don't need all that boilerplate code. You're gonna need Redux to do something similar for a smaller app. So that's where context API came in, where you got the provider, consumer, and things of that nature.
Yeah, and so that's another good option for sending data to children components as well. So I would definitely look into context API.
Okay.
Do you want to? I did have a couple pointers on the project, the counter project you did. Do you want to share your screen again, and then I can give you a couple tips there?
Okay, most definitely. All right. Sorry, I'm writing down what you
No,
said.
you're good. Take your notes, man. I need to take notes better. I'm learning from you today.
Thank you.
Okay, so scroll up
Can you see my screen now?
in the code.
Okay. Hello?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Dante? Hello? Can you hear me?
Hello?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, it cut out for a while. I was gonna send you a message. I know what's
Okay.
going on.
You can
All
hear
right,
me
hold on.
now?
Yeah, I can. Okay,
Okay.
let me try sharing it again. Sorry about that.
Okay. No, no worries.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Can you hear me okay?
Okay. Yes, I can.
Okay, cool. So go ahead and scroll up to the top of the code there. Okay. So yeah, I think having your state outside of the constructor is a really good pattern, especially if you're using arrow functions.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not using arrow functions, then it doesn't work as well because you need to have a constructor
To
to
bind.
bind your functions. Yeah. But yeah, this is great. So the one I was looking at is reset.
Yes.
So on line 13, you're destructuring the value prop off of state and then
Mm-hmm.
setting that to 0 and then passing in passing value into set state.
Mm-hmm.
But since you're hard coding 0 as the value of value on line 14, you can actually just take away line 13 and 14, and then in your set state call, just do value, just hard code 0 for value in your set state call. Does that make sense?
Yes, and so instead of doing it the way that I did, I can save a few lines of code and then do it this way, and then automatically, once I push the reset button, it'll
No, this,
automatically go back to 0. Correct?
this has to
Oh,
be, it's going to be broken because this is in an object, so you got to use a colon,
a
value
colon.
colon 0.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
good. No, you're good. Now it'll
Yeah,
work.
I got too excited. I'm sorry. I was like, yes, because that's what I originally had. Because I learned the unique thing is just like, so when you have like when I had the let value this that going on, at first you had to do it like this, but then I learned the cool
Mhm.
thing where you can just leave it by itself, and
Yeah.
then especially if you're gonna use the same name, like you can
Uh-huh.
just use it as values. So yes.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I got excited. I was just like, I gotta put this zero. But no, I got what you were saying though, because I did it up there. So yeah. So now once I increment and do a reset, bam.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah, saves a
Okay.
couple lines of code, but an increment, it works really good because you do need to, you don't know what value is. It could be 10 and you're incrementing to 11. It could be 1 and you're incrementing to 2. So that
Mm-hmm.
it works perfect in the increment function. But reset, since you're hard coding that to 0 anyways, then you can just do that all inside set state.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome.
Scroll down a little bit. So then we're pulling value off of state, passing down value, passing down increment, reset. Yeah, that looks really good. Okay, keep going. Oh, React.fragment. Do you know about the shortcut for fragment?
No.
So this is gonna blow your mind. This is crazy. So just
Okay.
erase React.fragment and leave only the carets. Just leave it completely blank. Yep, exactly like that. And that is valid syntax for React fragment.
Well, you mean I can save some? You know what? Let me write this in my notebook now, because I was so proud of myself for remembering to put React fragment,
Yeah,
and then
no,
like
that's
now,
awesome. You did. I was happy to see that.
no, but look, let me go ahead. So so what I just did there is the same as doing React.fragment.
Mm-hmm.
Look, you saving lives over here, man. Saving lives. All right, let me go ahead, write this in my notes. Just one more second. All right, there we go.
Nice.
Thank you for that. Appreciate
Yeah,
that.
I love that shortcut. It's awesome.
I know, me too. Like I was just like, yes.
Let's go down to your clicker component. Now on line 27, you're destructuring props. You can actually do that where the parameter is on line 26, where props is right there on line 26. So wrap props in parentheses, and then erase props out of the parentheses and move that entire destructuring object with number, handle increment, handle reset, move that into the parentheses. And then get rid of constant equals, yeah. So that's just another shortcut. If you want to destructure props, you can destructure it right inside the parentheses there.
Wow. That is so awesome, because I know by default, when you do functional components, the first argument will always be props.
Yep. So you can just you can destructure straight from the parentheses right there, from the parameters. It's awesome.
I know. Let me write my little notes. I'm getting excited. Like, oh man.
And then after you're done taking notes, let's just test it to make sure that everything's still working.
All right. Where you replace props. Awesome. All right. So let's see here.
Yeah.
Everything's working.
Nice. Okay, last shortcut that I'm going to give you.
Okay.
Looks good. Okay, so in your on clicks, I know you talked about this before, but right now you're passing in an arrow function, an anonymous arrow function. So event handlers like on click, on submit, those event handlers, we pass in function definitions, right? And that's what this is, an anonymous arrow function that is like on line 30, line 30. In that on click, you're passing in an anonymous arrow function, which is a function definition. Inside that function, you're invoking handle incrementer. So you're not actually invoking handle incrementer. You're just passing in this anonymous function, and then
invoking that one, and then
when you click the button, that one gets invoked, which invokes handle incrementer. So
I'm doing extra steps just to do something I'm doing extra steps to do something that can be simplified, correct?
Yeah. So if you instead of passing in, so the function definition that you pass in can just be handle incrementer rather than the anonymous function, and then just don't call it. So take away the parentheses at the end of handle incrementer, take away the arrow function, and just pass that. So that can be the function definition that you pass in.
Okay, so I need to write that. Oh, nope, go back, Dante. Okay, got too happy. Let me erase everything. All right.
So the arrow pattern is really good if you need to invoke, like if let's say you wanted to invoke handle incrementer, but then you wanted to pass a number into it, or you wanted to pass some kind of value into that function, then you would have to you'd have to put the invoking parentheses after handle incrementer just to pass values in, right? So then you'd have to wrap it in the arrow function. Okay. But if you don't need to do that, then this pattern works really well. And this is better for performance because you've already declared handle incrementer in a parent component. But when you come down to this component, you're telling your browser, your computer to create and store a brand new function, that anonymous arrow function. And that's one of the most expensive things in programming. Do you know what I mean by when I say expensive?
And it takes a lot of memory or a lot of
Yeah,
processing power.
yep. It takes a lot of power, takes a lot of RAM to run that operate to just create a function. Creating an object, creating a number variable doesn't take as much memory as creating a function. So every time you were clicking that button, you were recreating 2 extra functions that you didn't need to recreate, because it was re-rendering this function and recreating those 2 anonymous arrow functions.
Now let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
So to go back to what you were saying, like, so say for instance, if I wanted to pass like the you know how we have like when we're doing event listeners and things like that, we use we use the event object.
Yeah.
So say for instance, if we're passing like an event object or a value per se. So would we go back and we would do something like we would go back and do like the arrow function, but we would go like we're just gonna say value for example, and then inside of here I would do something along the lines of doing like the function call and then passing. Oops, sorry, my computer's like slow.
You're good.
Doing something and then passing in like value like that.
Really close. So let's look at the first button where handle incrementer is.
Okay.
Right now, that function is being passed the event. So if you only need the event, or if you don't even need the event, if you don't need anything passed in, keep that pattern, the one that you without the arrow function.
Okay.
So handle incrementer is actually being invoked with event passed into it automatically, even with the pattern that you have without the arrow function.
Okay.
Same with reset. So value, where you're passing value in the first set of parentheses, change that to event, because that's actually what's happening. You're not getting a value passed into this anonymous function. You're getting the event.
Okay.
So, let's say you wanted to pass in like the number 0, since you're resetting the number here. So, and you wanted the event as well. So go to now where the next value is.
Okay.
And you could pass through the event if you needed it.
Okay. So I could do event.
And then comma, and this is where you could pass in something else as well. So let's just pass in 0. And yeah, so this is how you would pass in. But the important part here is that the first set of parentheses can only ever take in the event. You're not going to get anything else out of that being passed into that first set of parentheses.
Okay, so the first set of parentheses. So if that's the case, whenever you're passing something to like the function, like when you're always like if you want to pass like a value, something like that to the first parameter, like before the arrow, it's just going to be event. But when you're passing something into like the function, you're going to pass the event handler. Like if you need to, you're going to pass the event handler first, and then anything else following like after that, because the inside the event will be the first parameter.
So I was going to show you this next. You actually don't even, if you don't need the event, then you can actually just erase both. You can erase event out of the first parentheses and the second parentheses. And if you don't need to pass in event. So if you don't need to handle the event in any way, yeah, you just do that and pass in 0. Will it jump back up at all? Just so you can see it a little bit clearer. Okay.
Oh, it's better. What if I do it? Yeah. If I say it's better, it's because I'm so used to speaking Spanish. So it's just second nature. Like I always do like little little replies in like Spanish, so sorry in advance.
No, you're fine. I didn't even notice. Yeah, so if you want to if you need to pass in another value, you can just pass it in like this. If you need to pass in both the event or if you need to pass in the event by itself, then you can do it like the line above in the incrementer. That is going to receive the event and nothing else. If you need to pass in event and another value, then you would do what we had before, where event was in the first set of parentheses and passed into handle reset.
Okay.
Sense?
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Awesome.
And I also cleared up a lot of confusion. Thank you. I appreciate that so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let's clean this up and get it back to where we had it, and then test it again and make sure everything's working.
And handle reset needs to be, yeah, there you go.
And everything still works. Ooh. That is so awesome. You know, I kept getting confused at first because I kept trying to call it. But when we pass in how the incrementer, what it's passing in is like the definition for us, correct? Like we're passing in definitions, correct?
Yes. Yep. You never pass in so what was happening, the reason that your screen goes blank is if you invoke handle reset inside here, it calls the function before you click the button, okay. which sets, excuse me, which will run set state in the parent component and pass down a new number, which re-renders clicker, which would then, without even clicking, invoke handle reset, which calls set state, which passes down a new number, which calls handle reset, which calls set state, passes down a new number. So you were in an infinite loop where you were always going to be resetting state and re-rendering clicker because it kept receiving a new, it kept receiving number as a new value.
Wow.
So that's why that happened. So yeah, we never want to directly invoke a function inside on click. Instead, pass in a anonymous function, which when that is called, will invoke the function.
I can invoke a function. Okay. Invoke the function. Awesome. Oh man, thank you so much for that explanation. You really cleared up a lot because I think that's been my most challenging, the most challenging thing as well. Like you would think it was proper states, but no, it was actually like dealing with like the functions and knowing whether or not I was doing it correctly. But
yeah,
this actually clears it up a lot, and it's like I'm excited about like passing like functions via props.
Awesome. Yeah, it's powerful. I mean, your state lives in that top component, so you have to declare your function there so it can manage your state with set state. But then clicker is the one that's invoking it, so you have to know how to pass callback functions down to children components and manage those functions, call those functions in a different component. So that's an important piece to understand for sure.
And you know what's so crazy? It's like when I was rereading my notes, I like really wrote this out in like 3 minutes. I was so happy because at first, like I was frozen with fear. I was kind of paralyzed with fear because I was like, I don't know how props work, and am I defining the children props for themselves or what's going on? And then I started hearing about like, well, the parent and the parent component, it defines the props and passes it down to them, and then within the child, you have to find, once it consumes it, you have to find a way to utilize it within that, within like the definition of that component, and see how it's going to be used. And I was just like, and just hearing those, like hearing that repetition, because what happens with most tutorials is people just say it one time and then that's it, and they never talk about it again.
Yeah.
But what I love about what I'm learning now is the repetition. Like I remember in my notes where I was reading it and I wrote it one time, but then I came back to another section of my notes where I was making like I was repeating like the same thing, so I didn't forget and I wasn't questioning why am I doing this. And then also too, thank you so much for, like I said, for like the clarification of that, because like I was doing a lot of extra steps that weren't really necessary. So that really cleared up a lot as far as passing like functions or dealing with event listeners. So
Yeah.
thank you. You just made that like a walk in the park, you know?
Awesome. Glad to hear it.
Yeah.
Cool, man. You're doing good.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, keep it up. I think you'll definitely be able to change your life with this.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Oh, hold on. Let me see your face. Because Sarah's just still looking at this not so beautiful clicker.
It looks better than what most people start out with. So you're doing good.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I was just so happy. Like, you should have saw my face when I pushed the incrementer and it worked. I was like, yes. And then when I did a reset, because the reason why I came up with the idea for the reset is because when I was using CodePen, I kept having to refresh the page in order to, and I was just like, it's like, Dante, why do you keep refreshing the page? Just do a reset. And I was like, can I do a reset? And I was like, yes, you can. And so, yeah, I ended up doing a reset button to save me the extra step of having to move my mouse up there and like reset it. And then also too, I was thinking about, I could do like a stopwatch. I started thinking to myself, I could do like a stopwatch. And then I was just like, that might be on my to-do list.
Nice. Yeah. Heck yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, let me know if you jump into that, and have questions. I'd be happy to help you out.
Awesome. Let me see. I think I did, like, because I know you did tell me earlier before the call, like, well, early in the call that you do have some things that you understand. I know I can't hog you all to myself because I know you're a very busy person. So, my question to you is, with this whole Redux thing, when is it useful? When, like, and then what parts of the application would you use it? And when is it just like not a good idea to use Redux at all, when you can just do something with just React itself and just dealing with state and passing via props, you know?
Yeah. I think kind of a general rule that people follow is when you start to get your app starts to scale and get bigger and bigger, then it's more okay to reach for something like Redux to help manage your state. But with small applications, there's not really, it's kind of overkill. There's a lot of boilerplate and setup code that comes with Redux. So a lot of times people won't use Redux if it's just a small code. It's just too much writing, and you don't really gain enough out of it just to set it up. There's so much setup that it's not worth it on small code, on small projects. So I think that's kind of the general consensus right now, that if you have a much larger application, go ahead and implement Redux. And I don't know. It's hard to like define a point to say, well, what does large app mean?
I was just about to ask that. You read my
mind. Sorry, yeah, that's not the answer you want to hear, but that's I think when you maybe the point is when you feel like state is getting kind of unruly, or if you have one component that's just managing state for your entire application and it's just like a huge state object, then think about finding a different state management solution.
I think, but to add on to that too, I think for beginners, because I feel like when you hear, well, if it's not a big app, then don't worry about using it. And I think that gives like the new developers like a little wiggle room, like that loophole, like, oh, well, I'm just gonna make sure my app doesn't really need to be big, so I never have to use it. I would add on, I think in the beginning of your journey of React and Redux, I think you should implement Redux even if it's small or big. Like if I would say even on small one, so that you can get into the habit of using it, and
Yeah.
then first build the app just using state, just state and
Hmm.
props. And I would say then do the same thing, but try using Redux. And then moving forward, you can debate whether or not you want to use Redux or not. Because I
That's
feel
a
like
great point. Yeah.
I feel like it's never a bad thing to have a lot of tools under your belt. Even if it's a lot
Mhm.
of boilerplate and it's a lot of extra code, it's better to have a lot of tools than limited tools.
Mhm.
Because no matter what, if you get thrown into whatever scenario, like your client may say, "Hey, I want an app that's going to have over 1 million users." And then you don't have to be like, "Oh crap, I don't know Redux. I should really learn Redux." You're like, "Oh, no problem. I think here
Yeah.
is where I might want to go ahead and use Redux," because even though it's a lot of boilerplate, it kind of, if you're doing a big app like that, it will save you so much time in the long run. Like
Hmm.
it's like you move a little slower in the beginning, but when you have it, and it's there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And in fact, our students, the first project they do with Redux is a counter app, exactly what you built here, but with Redux.
Oh,
So it's like it's that simple of an app. But yes, we're bringing in Redux just so they can understand the flow in a really simple application. And then you start
yeah.
to see the patterns, and then we do a to-do list, and so it's a little bit bigger. You've got some more data changes that are happening, so you implement a little bit more with Redux, and um, yeah, so it kind of grows from there. So I think that's a great point. When you're learning, of course, start with something small, but once you have that as a tool and feel comfortable with it, um, then you can
It is
start to
at
make
your
those
discretion.
decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? I actually said something. I did a little live today, and I actually said something along the lines of every time, like somebody created this meme that says every time a developer creates a to-do list, there's something dealing with like a baby puppies or babies or something like that. And I was just like, it was horrible. So like people. I
To-do
think the
list
first thing,
forever.
yeah, yeah, exactly. To-do list purgatory. No, I think actually when I was doing vanilla JavaScript, I actually did a to-do. I actually did a to-do to-do list.
Nice.
I was so proud of it. I was like, yes, look at me. I'm never gonna use this because I'm really bad at doing to-do lists. But I was like, I did.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, man,
So
I gotta wrap up and get ready for bed.
okay. Well, do you have any parting words for me, my good friend?
Keep up the good fight.
Thank you. I
It's worth
will.
it. It's tough right now, and it's hard to see if it's going to be worth it in the end. But I promise it will be.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And again, like I said before, thank you so much for this moment, and thank you so much for just being an overall awesome person. And just thank you. I'm really grateful for you, and like thank you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.